Silent Hill 2 Remake, as the unofficial title suggests, is the remake of Silent Hill 2, a horror game from 2001 that's been lauded as one of the best horror games and narrative experiences of all time. After more than 20 years, did Bloober Team manage to let this classic shine for a new generation and guide the series out of the fog? Or has the mark been missed? Well, let's get... In the game, you play as James Sunderland, who received a letter from his wife Mary, who presumably died 3 years ago, telling him that she's waiting for him in the town of Silent Hill. In order to find out if his wife is actually still alive, he has to explore the streets of the town and its less than cozy buildings, find clues and key items, solve puzzles, and fight off spooky monsters. So first of all, the good. The graphics, the music by none other than longtime series composer Akira Yamaoka, the atmosphere, and the presentation in general are absolutely fantastic. The way the story is told is captivating, and the performances of the actors are stellar. Several new story sequences and dialogue have been added, and they all work wonderfully and help fleshing out the relationships between the characters. Exploring the foggy streets of Silent Hill and its dilapidated buildings has never been this haunting and beautiful. No two buildings look alike, and unique little details can be found wherever you go. The designs of the monsters are amazing, especially when you figure out that there were no arbitrary design decisions being made here, and that there are reasons why they look the way they do. The designs themselves, of course, are over 20 years old, but they hold up brilliantly, and the modern adaptation has been handled perfectly. In terms of gameplay, Silent Hill wouldn't be Silent Hill without some cryptic and bizarre puzzles, and the ones in the Silent Hill 2 remake are both fun and engaging. They require you to pay close attention and read carefully. While inventory puzzles are present, the focus really lies on deciphering clues and using your brain to piece things together. What's great is that these puzzles always tie into the game's themes as well. In addition to new puzzles that fit just as well, there are several that were inspired by the original, but they are different enough to offer a fresh challenge, ensuring that even long-time Silent Hill 2 veterans will get a kick out of them. Just like in the original, the difficulty levels for combat and puzzles can be set separately. Silent Hill 2 and the series in general were always known for their clunky and not particularly fun combat. That kind of combat made sense in context, but the remake mixes things up a little bit and offers a combat system that strikes a wonderful balance between that feeling of playing a normal dude who can't really fight and still making it fun. You only have a handful of weapons and there is no upgrade system, but that works perfectly for this game. Healing items and ammunition can be found in a decent amount, and the encounters are pretty fair in terms of challenge. Especially the boss department profits greatly from the new combat system. The bosses found in the original were fairly unspectacular gameplay-wise, and basically just consisted of running around and occasionally shooting at them. The remake probably has the best bosses in the entire series, and they're definitely a highlight. However, while the combat has been improved, it's here that I ran into my biggest frustration, which leads me to the bad. There simply is too much combat, to a degree that it's detrimental to the atmosphere. Pretty early on it becomes clear that you can't walk particularly far without running into one or several creatures that want to murder you. And the further the game progresses, the worse it gets. After the halfway point, the game virtually spams you with enemies at all times, and your little radio that goes off whenever there is a monster nearby just won't shut up. And if that wasn't bad enough, there is one enemy type in particular that dials up the frustration meter to the max. The mannequin. There are too many mannequins. Two mannequins, if you will. These little bastards hide, so they can get the jump on you and give you a startle as well. They're effectively little jump scare monsters. Now, the original Silent Hill 2 made do with merely a handful of jump scares, and it worked perfectly. Silent Hill 2 is supposed to be a game where you can take in the atmosphere and feel both the tension, the melancholy, and the sadness. Yes, it's scary, but scary is not equals jump scares. The mannequins are all over the place, and when you enter a room, you can't be sure that there's going to be at least one of these annoying buggers hiding and just waiting for you. When you're constantly expecting someone to jump out and yell boo in your face, and you're right 95% of the time, then that's not scary, that's just annoying. And despite the good mechanics, that feeling of annoyance is unfortunately present in most of the combat in this game. By the end of the game, I've killed several hundred monsters, which is way more than I killed in the Resident Evil 2 remake. And that's a comparison that I shouldn't even need to make. Enemies aren't the only thing you have more of in this version either. A lot of the areas have been expanded to such a degree that it just feels stretched and bloated, turning a tight 9-hour-long adventure into one that takes approximately 14 to 16 hours to complete, and one that feels a couple hours too long. I'm gonna take this moment to explain a certain gameplay loop you have pretty much at all times. You come to a new area, there's a puzzle box, and you need to find, let's say, 3 key items to open it. Every single key item is not only hidden in the area, but in its own sub-area. For example, In the original Silent Hill 2, there was a puzzle involving a clock. You see the clock, you solve the puzzle, done. In the remake, you see the clock, but all its hands are missing. Now you have to find each hand, and all of them have their own areas with their own sets of puzzles and set pieces and monster encounters. It's tiring. And the constant onslaught of enemies certainly doesn't help. Also, as much as I adore the presentation and the atmosphere, occasionally some situations in the game were handled much more elegantly in the original. The new over-the-shoulder camera perspective may have something to do with it. The beginning of the game is a good example. When first entering Silent Hill, in the original version, the camera perspective would constantly shift, leading to a strange sensation of disorientation, while also making it feel like you are about to enter a different world. Can't really do that with an over-the-shoulder view. Another example would be a certain chase sequence in the middle of the game that I'm not gonna spoil. In OGSH2, you would walk down a hallway, and suddenly there's just something behind you, and you know you need to run away. No cutscene, no nothing, and just the setup and the camera perspective make it feel like you're in a bad dream. In the remake, the presence of whatever is chasing you is announced with a cutscene, and the way it's handled just feels noisy, like walls breaking down, loud banging, that kind of stuff. That's something I'd expect from the Resident Evil 3 remake, not Silent Hill. In general, the original felt more subdued, dreamlike and surreal, and silent. Anyway, now let me quickly bring up some other things that stood out to me in neither a negative nor a positive way. The weird. James' behavior seems very erratic, more so than in the original. As an example, in the 2001 version, James knows from the beginning where he needs to go. In the remake, he has no clue what to do, finds a random matchbox on the ground and decides to visit the bar that the matchbox is from, then sees an old jukebox with a broken record in it and for some reason decides that he needs to fix it. I suppose this sort of stuff makes the whole affair slightly more surreal? Again, this is neither a negative nor a positive. I just can't make heads or tails of it. Going in a completely different direction, another weird thing is that the default brightness is much too low. Maybe it's just my TV, but I've played through a big chunk of the game thinking, why does this game not want me to see stuff? Only to realize that this might not be intentional, that I'm a dumbass, and that I should maybe just turn up the brightness. Well, let's go to the verdict. Did Bloober Team succeed? Do I recommend this game? Yes, but with some caveats. I think it's a very good game, a good way to both revisit Silent Hill 2 and to visit it for the first time. Simply because on a technical level, apart from some lighting issues here and there, it's just really impressive and a good way to experience the narrative. Unfortunately, my main gripe, the amount of combat, really dampens the experience quite a bit. I'm not exaggerating when I say this game could have been GOTY material if it had 60 to 70% fewer enemies. But I gotta say, after I was done with my first playthrough, I didn't feel like revisiting this game anytime soon. However, I did end up playing through it for a second time, and during this second run, I came to the realization that the positives do outshine the negatives. Is it better than the original? Or could it even replace it? Probably not. Does this remake still have its place? Absolutely. I kinda wish that Bloober Team was going to add a new, now with 30% enemies mode. And in the very unlikely scenario that they do, it will definitely make my top list this year. Anyway, it's a beautiful game with a beautiful atmosphere, tons of wonderful moments that are going to stick with you, and tells a beautiful story in a beautiful way, and I wouldn't mind Bloober Team having another crack at the series. Well, if you played it, what are your opinions on it? How do you feel about the increase in combat? Does it add tension or break the atmosphere? Did you like the mannequins? Do you think the overall presentation has been handled well? Or could they have done a better job? Would you randomly pick up a matchbox and visit the address written on it? Please, let me know in the comments. That's all from me. If you want to help me out, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a lovely day.